Okay, so I decided to keep 3 mantises and I let the rest go in my garden. So we're gonna look around and find them. There's some over there still on the lid. There's a couple on the leaves. There's some over here on my pumpkin. There's a couple of them over here. There's another one. And then I'm gonna try to show you the ones that I'm keeping, but they're really tiny and really hard to find, so give me a minute. There's this one. There's another one in his own tank. And there's this one. So yeah, I kept 3 of them and they're all in individual tanks by themselves, so no one will eat each other. And the rest, well, they live in the garden now and they need to sort their own life out. So I just put flightless fruit flies in there and this little guy caught one. He is living his best life. This little guy also caught one. I'm so glad they're like happy to eat. I was worried they might not eat the fruit flies. But clearly I was wrong. He's demolishing that thing. Oh my gosh. Let's check on the mantises. We're gonna start with the ones that are still in my garden because some of them are still here. There's one. There's another one. There's 2 of them. And then there's another one. Another one. Another one. Then here's our first mantis. He's just chilling. There's our second one. And there's our third one. So I reorganized my garden because I live in Arizona and it's heading towards summer and a bunch of my plants got cooked by the sun. Also, birds kept landing on the shelves I had and fucking up my plants and I got sick of it. So now it's like this. So let's look for some mantises and then I'll show you our mantises. There's one. There's another one. There's another one. And it seems like it's just the 3 of them in the garden. There's our first mantis. I just watered them and put fruit flies in there. There's some fruit flies running around. But he's doing good. There's our second mantis. And there's our third mantis. He's a little hard to see because I just sprayed them down. Time for a mantis update. First we're gonna check the garden as always, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. There's another one. Another one. And it looks like it's just the 3 of them in the garden today. So let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. He's hanging upside down right now like a goofball. Here's our second mantis, also upside down. Here's a 4th garden mantis chilling on top. And there's our 3rd mantis, who's, again, upside down. I'm gonna help this guy over to a leaf, though. There we go. Now he has a leaf. Alright, let's check on the mantises. First we'll check the garden, and then we'll check on our mantises. I just sprayed them. There's one. It was raining this morning, so I'm surprised to see any in the garden. There's another one. And it looks like it's just those 2 in the garden. So let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. They've gotten a little bit bigger. And there's our 3rd mantis. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. And it looks like there's just the one in the garden, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. There's our second mantis. And there's our 3rd mantis. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. And it looks like it's just the 4 of them today. So let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. And here's our 3rd mantis. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. And it looks like it's just the 4 of them, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis, and it looks like he just molted. And here's our 3rd mantis. So far, only our second mantis has molted, so that should mean that the other 2 are going to molt soon. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. And I only see the 1 mantis in the garden today, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. I think he might have molted overnight because he looks a lot bigger. Here's our second mantis, which he molted yesterday. And here's our 3rd mantis, who also looks bigger, so I think he molted as well. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one, and it actually looks like he just molted too. There's another one who also just molted as well. And it looks like it's just the 2 of them in the garden today, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. And here's our 3rd mantis. First, let's check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. Here's one. There's two. And it looks like it's just the two of them in the garden today, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. And here's our third mantis. He's in the middle of eating a flightless fruit fly. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. That took a while, but I found one. I was only able to find the one mantis in the garden today, so I don't know where the others went. Here's our first mantis. It took me a minute to realize that's where he was because he's pretty decently camouflaged. This one is our second mantis. Also took me a while to find because, again, really decently camouflaged in there. And here's our third mantis. He was easy to find. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises per usual. There's one. There's two. I was only able to find the two of them today, so maybe there's more, but I just can't see them because they're getting really good at camouflaging, and I don't have the best eyesight despite the fact that I have glasses, so I don't know what to tell you. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. I'm noticing this one's a lot more green than the other two, so maybe that's indicative of different genders. I have no clue. I'm gonna look it up and find out. And here's our third mantis, but you can kind of see what I mean. Like, this one's a lot more brown than the second one. The second one is a lot more green. So I'm gonna look up if that indicates their gender. Okay, I looked it up. The brown versus green difference has nothing to do with gender. It's purely just different genetics. So I still have no clue what gender any of my mantises are, but that's okay. We'll figure it out when they get older. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises. Don't mind the fact that my pumpkin needs to be watered. It's a dramatic plant. And then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. And again, I'm just seeing the one mantis. Maybe, like I said, I have poor eyesight despite the fact I have glasses. Maybe I just can't find the other ones. But I also need to leave for work. So we'll be satisfied with our one today. Let's check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. And our third mantis. Don't mind my pumpkin being over dramatic. It's getting watered as soon as I am done filming this. But let's check the garden for mantises. I'm not seeing any in the garden, but it has been really windy today, so they might be hiding. Also, I have poor eyesight. We're gonna check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. This one actually escaped last night when I was feeding them and I had to put him back. Naughty baby. And here's our third mantis. As you can see, my pumpkin is fine. It was literally just being dramatic. We're gonna check the garden for mantises and then we'll check on our mantises. It's a little windy today, but there's one. And I'm only seeing the one, and I kind of have to leave for work soon, so we're gonna check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. As you can see, there's still some flightless fruit flies in there that he needs to eat. And here's our third mantis. He looks a little bit bigger, so I think he might have molted. Plus, there's a molt on the floor, but that might be his old one. I'm not quite sure. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. I'm only seeing the one mantis today, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our first mantis. Here's our second mantis. And here's our third mantis. First, we'll check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. There's two. I'm only seeing the two mantises, so let's check on our mantises. So this guy nearly gave me a stroke. I thought he was dead, but he's actually in the middle of molting, which he's having a little bit of a hard time, so I'm debating on helping him out. But you can see he's alive. But I put him back because I'm not sure how to help because I can't tell where he's stuck at. So I'm gonna give him a couple hours. Hopefully he'll sort it out by himself. If not, then I'll intervene. But this is what he looked like when I opened the tank, and I was like, oh my god, he's dead. But no, he's not dead. He's just molting. Then here's our second mantis. I believe this one might have molted already because it's much bigger than yesterday. I'd have to look around the tank. And here's our third mantis, who again I'm pretty sure finished a molt because he's much bigger than yesterday. So I noticed while molting our first mantis, he lost two of his legs on one side and he was still stuck in the molt, so I decided to help. I got one of his remaining legs unstuck, but one of his pincher arms is still stuck in the molt, so I'm gonna see if he can take care of that himself because I can't get it off. I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but hopefully he'll be okay. First, we're gonna check the garden, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. I'm only seeing the one, and I need to leave for work, so let's check on our mantises. Our first mantis still isn't doing well. I'm honestly not sure what's gonna happen. He's still alive, he survived the night, but I'm questioning what his quality of life is and kind of debating if it's maybe in his best interest to kind of humanely end things. Our second mantis is doing good. He escaped last night and ran all the way over here, and I had to put him back. Again, that's twice he's escaped. Like when I open the door, he wants to run out. He's a naughty baby. And our third mantis is doing good as well. He has not tried to escape. He's a good baby. So, sad update, guys. He's not dead, but he's not gonna make it. He has like no energy. He barely reacts when I touch him. The two remaining legs that he has are both splayed, so he can't really use them to hold on to anything, and his one pincher arm is still stuck in a molt. So I really don't think our little buddy is gonna make it, guys. So I think we're gonna have to go the humane route and let him go. First, we'll check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. I'm not seeing any mantises in the garden, but my garden's getting a little, I don't want to say overgrown, because it's not overgrown, it's just growing. So let's go check on the mantises. Then, as of last night, we don't have our first mantis anymore. Here's our second mantis. He's doing good. And there's our third mantis. He's also doing good. But since we only have the two mantises left, and I can tell them apart because our second one is green and our third one is brown, my boyfriend and I are gonna come up with some names for them. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. There's one. I'm only seeing the one, and I need to leave for work, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our second mantis. He's got several fruit flies in there to eat. We still need to come up with a name for the mantises. And here's our third mantis. I'm just chilling. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. I'm not seeing any mantises in the garden, and I need to leave for work, so let's check on our mantises. Here's our second mantis. He's doing good. And here's our third mantis. He's also doing good. I'm not seeing any mantises in the garden, so let's go check on our mantises. Here's our second mantis. He's doing good. I just sprayed down the cages. And here's our third mantis. He's really active this morning. First, we're gonna check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. It's not a mantis, but I found a grasshopper, which they've been terrorizing me recently because they've been migrating through my apartment complex, and they keep ending up in my car and jumping at me while I'm driving and scaring me lifeless. But this one seems nice. He's just chilling. I'm not seeing any mantises in the garden, so we're gonna check on our mantises. So here's our second mantis. We decided we're gonna name him Cilantro because he's green. I still don't know if he's a boy or a girl, but that's okay. Then here's our third mantis, and we're gonna name this one Nutmeg because he's brown. Again, I don't know if they're boys or girls, but that's okay. They're still cute. Cilantro is eating his first mealworm. He's a hungry boy. Look at him go. And he took it from tongs, too. He do just be munching on that thing. Oh my goodness. I'm just devouring it. Oh my god. Good job, Cilantro. Nutmeg took one too, but he hasn't started eating it yet. Oh, there he goes. You got it, Nutmeg? You got it, buddy? There he goes, munching away. Good job, Nutmeg. First, we'll check the garden for mantises, and then we'll check on our mantises. I just gave them both mealworms, so they do be munching right now. I found one. I might offer this guy a mealworm, see if he wants it. He didn't want a worm, but that's okay. Let's go check on our mantises. So here's Cilantro. He's finishing up his mealworm, but he's doing good. This is the first time I've gotten either of them to take a mealworm, so I feel pretty accomplished. Then there's Nutmeg. He's also munching on his worm. I think I'm disturbing him, so I'm gonna let him be. But yeah, they're both doing good, and they both took baby mealworms. I mean, the mealworms are super small. They're like 1/4 of an inch. So now that they're eating mealworms, I might move them inside, because the entire reason they've been outside is because they've been eating flightless fruit flies, and I'm not about to have flightless fruit flies loose in my house. But now that they're eating mealworms, I can probably move them inside. So we'll see. I'm not seeing any mantises in the garden, so let's check on Cilantro and Nutmeg. Here's Cilantro. He's doing good. And here's Nutmeg. He's also doing good.